I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I think I speak for both of us in doing so. Welcome. We are here. We are here for the Sunday morning program. There's an ebullience in this room that is the result of quite dedicated practice all week. And I would like to just provide a brief overview of what that was about and share that gift that has been generated here. And we will also touch on how to bring it forth into this world, how important that is, especially with the awareness that the world we are meeting is a world with violence and uncertainty. So I would like to begin with a poem that was shared what seems like a very long time ago, but was just a few days. This poem is from a book called Awakening Through Love by John McCransky. And this is a poem about giving and receiving love, essentially, and how ordinary it is, and also how very important it is. And it's called At the Corner Store by Alison Luterman. It was a new old man behind the counter, skinny, brown, and eager. He greeted me like a long-lost daughter, as if we both came from the same world, someplace warmer and more gracious than this cold city. I was thirsty and alone, sick at heart, grief-soiled, and his face lit up as if I were his prodigal daughter. Returning, coming back to the freezer bins in front of the register, which were still and always filled with the same old cable car ice cream sandwiches and cheap frozen greens. Back to the knobs of beef and packages of hot dogs, these familiar shelves strung with potato chips and corn chips, stacked up beer boxes, and immortal Jim Beam. I lumbered to the case and bought my precious bottled water, and he returned my change, beaming, as if I were the bright new buds on the just bursting open cherry trees. As if I were everything beautiful struggling to grow, and he was blessing me as he handed me my dime. Over the dirty counter and the plastic tub of red licorice whips. This old man who didn't speak English beamed out love to me in the iron week after my mother's death, so that when I emerged from his store, my whole cockeyed life, what a beautiful failure, glowed gold like sunset after rain. Frustrated city dogs were yelping in their yards, mad with passion behind their chain-linked fences. And in the driveway of a peeling paint house, a woman and a girl danced to contagious reggae. Praise Allah, Jah, the Buddha, Kuan Yin, Jesus, Mary, and even jealous old Jehovah, for eyes, hands of the divine everywhere. So we took a whole week to practice metta despite the resistance that may have erupted in people. Why not metta? Well, it's corny. And it's awkward, which incidentally I have found that awkwardness is very often the price of admission to anything good. Metta is fake. It's not genuine, it's shallow, it's not real Zen practice. It's indulgent. How dare I take this time to do something like this when so much suffering is happening? It turns out you can have all that and still practice metta. You can even have hatred and ill will in your heart. We've had people sit here and report that they hated everybody, or at least half the people that they could see in the room. And it's still fine. It still works us over. You don't have to already be a saint. This is what metta is actually for. You can start right where you are. We sometimes use the word love for this. But if love is not the word for you, you could try friendliness. You could try appreciation. You could try acceptance. You could try presence. It's all the same. An acronym emerged: presence, acceptance, and love. PAL. Personally, I like PAW as a dog person. Presence, acceptance, and warm-heartedness. But whatever works. It works for kitty people too, I guess, huh? We did smile practice. Just a half smile maybe on occasion. As an experiment, see what happens if you just allow yourself the gift of a smile, to relax into a smile. And we practiced giving and receiving love to and from our benefactors, invoking the human embodiment of Jizo Bodhisattva from this lifetime, Mr. Rogers, great teacher, Fred Rogers. And we can do this practice right now. Let's take 10 seconds to reflect on the people, the beings, who in his words, loved you into being. Right now, take 10 seconds to bring to mind the people who have helped you become who you are, those who have cared about you and wanted what was best for you in life. Thank you. We use the classical phrases and the classical categories. May I, may you, may we be safe, be at ease, be peaceful, be happy. And we mixed it all up, and we encouraged you to find your own phrases and words and ways of bringing this into being. How about abiding in happiness? In that there's no I or you. Abiding in peace. Maybe your metta practice is wordless. Maybe it's visual. The sun in our hearts. For a beloved, for ourselves, for strangers, and for a difficult one, also known as the final boss. In video games, that final boss is the last difficult enemy as the game gets progressively harder at the end of the game. And for someone close to you, that might be the most difficult person for you to offer metta to, or someone famous, perhaps. I don't know, maybe. And for some of you, quite a few people, that final boss may very well be yourself. And so it's important and very brave to take this on. And for many of us, it's just the beginning of a process of softening, a process of ripening and sweetening and changing and transforming our fixed two-dimensional ideas of who we think we are, ideas that we are unworthy, our self-righteousness, our two-dimensional ideas about who we think someone else is, what we think the world is, these ideas that turn people into things, and we might not even be aware that that's happening until we look. In this practice, we can discover that. We can include all of it. And we can discover that our heart's true nature, our heart's true capacity, is boundless. So it's important to practice metta for strangers. Even this, especially this, is the seat of war. A person unknown to me, I might pass and not even see them. I might make a snap judgment based on their appearance and think that I know who they are, what their life is, what their heart is. Or I might prefer to hoard and offer metta only to myself and my closest ones, you know, us. And I might not want to focus on them. This is the smoldering ember underground. One left unattended can grow into a conflagration. And we can see that clearly, can't we? We can clearly see the result of a daily practice of having enemies. What phrases are you, what phrases are we repeating about others every day? What are we directing with our heart minds every day? What kindling, what paper, what fuel are we adding to the fire? So if you think that doing a week of metta practice is easy, the easy way out, go ahead and try it. I invite you. We do this every year.
So I'm one of those people who used to sit in the Zendo and go, this isn't Zen practice. And then Chozen Roshi, with her persistent love, kept tapping and tapping until I finally cracked a little bit. So it was a delight to do this practice. A number of things were verified for me. One of the things that's interesting is that throughout the Theravadan literature, they talk about metta as softening the ground and preparing the being for deeper concentration. And I saw many people who wholeheartedly took this up and then did not hit some of the inner critic obstacles that they often hit. And contrary to some belief, the metta was actually conducive to touching into source, right? That clear radiance that is at the heart of the matter. So it was, it's a delight, it was an honor to be in that seat. I came out of session to be informed of all kinds of bad news in the world. And this is what I wrote in response to that I wish to share with you. So the human body-mind is like a sink with many faucets. Your human body-mind, like a sink with many faucets. And it's ready for something to flow out at just the tap of that knob. And there are pipes and faucets of all manners of outlooks, states of mind, emotions, feelings. And you have some piping, it's a little bit different maybe than somebody else. But at the turn, some of these faucets let out a trickle, and at a turn, some release a very strong outpouring. Do we turn the faucets? Many of our feelings are intensely aversive. Why would we choose that? Do others turn our faucets? if that's the case, your house is surely going to be flooded and overwhelmed. So much goes on in the world. And especially if you've done concerted practice, because you know it could be different, it's frustrating that it's not. But my version of how it should be different is different than someone else's version of how it should be different. Yeah, but we're right. We're more informed. We're more clear-eyed about what's truly happening out there. We're less deceived by propaganda. If you knew what we knew, you'd know better. And at exactly the same time, many beings are saying, yeah, but we're right. We're more informed. We're more clear-eyed about what's truly happening. If you weren't deceived by propaganda, you would see what we see, and you would know better. This is a very strange situation. And so faucets are turned on and left on, and houses are flooded away, and lives are lost, and actual listening and basic human dignity are carried away in the flood, and blame lands on the faucet that most fills our view. There are many places to look, but blame lands on the one faucet we happen to see, or we believe we saw someone turn. Nothing can have a single cause. There is nothing in your life that has a single cause. Try to think of even a single object. Nothing has a single cause, and each cause can be traced to another cause. And if you really contemplate it, the whole universe is implicated in everything that happens. I actually did have somebody in deep honesty come into the interview and say, I'm angry at the way the universe works. Now we're getting somewhere. Something we love is braided up somewhere in the great net with something we're disgusted by. And more to the point, we see that every outpouring we admire or despise, and everything in between at least trickles from us. And if we were there, it could trickle exactly or flow exactly as it does over there, which we view from our place where we go, if they only knew what I knew, if they were more informed, if they weren't reading the propaganda, if they just saw what I see. And so this impossibility is perplexing, heartbreaking. And for thousands of years, contemplatives have been doing sit-in protests of all of this. And we did a version. We did a 6-day, I don't know how many hours, 150 hours, 170-hour peaceful protest together. There were no fistfights, no shots were fired. We protested our own tyrannical, egoistic tendencies. We confronted our portion of the world's toxins, and we asked for transparency in all affairs. We practiced turning on no faucets, or we consciously turned on the faucet of friendly love. We did leak, and in leaking we saw how hard it is to not leak. And so our certainty about how other people should be may have shifted our policies to some degree. As far as I know, nobody bought anything. We conserved resources by sharing. And many of us may have been moved to add our voices to the collective mix and make louder the prayer that all beings may be afforded dignity, respect, safety, understanding. But sometimes we could actually feel in our flesh and bones that we were miraculously and simply living out an actual, factual, available alternative. We made an almost utopia in the midst of all the rest of it. And almost anybody who had the desire could have joined, and the resources. And so we are not just saying not that, not that, not that, hoping to be louder and more convincing than other beings who are saying yes that, yes that, yes that. We're not just saying not that, even though as Buddhists we unequivocally stand behind compassion and dignity and respect for all beings and shedding of any attachment that gets in the way of that. But we weren't just saying not that, not that, not that, but we were embodying, living out an alternative. And you can join one of these sit-ins every month, here or online. Thank you. Are we done?
I think there's time for audience participation.
Audience participation.
I don't know anything about the news yet, but my daughter and daughter-in-law to be are in LA, and when we leave, I'm going to call her first before I consume any. I probably won't actually consume any news, but something Onshin said, I think it was this morning, really sunk into me, which was, I think he said, the open heart dissolves the war, or something close to that. And I just really want to take that as my metta into the world.
I think the simple lesson I'll take from the week is facing the challenges in my life. I like to use force and I like to figure them out. And sometimes I can overcome them in that way, but it doesn't actually transform them. But using the question, how can I help? Yeah, like it doesn't necessarily make the problem go away, but it seems to change it in a way. It transforms it, and then it's not like a problem anymore. It's still the same thing, but it's like, oh, it's just a thing to work with. And then the next thing. And I'm trying to keep that fresh.
It's very friendly, too.
Yes. Friendly is not Zen, but I'm getting used to it.
He says.
Problem. Something so easily happens for us when we think problem. The mind often crystallizes that thing and all nuance is lost. And then not only does that create a lot of the normal friction we're well aware of, but when we crystallize it, we don't actually see what else is possible there. We've hardened the person or the situation or the reality. We thingify with our minds, and then we're in relationship to this thing that is not as one-dimensional as we tend to believe it to be. So that friendly attitude undercuts that hardening of the mind, and there actually is more available to engage with. So thank you for bringing that in.
Why do you think that metta was not historically part of Zen practice?
If you read the great text called the Tenzo no Kyokun, Dogen Zenji says that one of the essential qualities, two of the essential qualities are magnanimity, so big-heartedness, and a grandfatherly heart or a grandmotherly mind. So it's absolutely very present in Zen. Now, culturally, who knows? Maybe it's the case that, like you sometimes hear, that Japanese children are love-bombed until they're like 8. And then it's like, all right, get your stuff together. And it shifts a little bit to tough love. So that the families that people came from were a little bit more supported culturally in love bombing. Is that a good term, love bomb? That seems, I saw a thumb up and a no. Love flooding. Like I saw this beautiful woman gaze into her baby and I thought, that's, yes, thank you. They're so imprinted that they can go to the monastery and the tough love rounds them out. Now you transfer to our culture, it's a little bit different. Yeah. So that, and the Zendo is a place of passionate commitment to waking up. And if we think the strictness of the Zendo, or how it could be strict or has been strict, represents the whole tradition, we're missing all of the nuanced love in the living together in brotherly and sisterly ways that is actually amazing if you do it for a long time. Right? There's actually so much love going on behind the scenes. Right? But it might not be, fuzzy-wuzzy sentimental, but it's sincere.
Yeah, it seemed to me that a lot of the love that comes through in Zen practice is implicit, is like be really strict, and then you'll find your way to it eventually. It's just very, very patient in that way. Yeah. And I thought I had a question about that, but I guess I don't.
There are many beautiful things about the American temperament. And one of them that even when people don't like us that much, they can recognize we are very open people. Right? We tend to be very open. We are not as reserved as some cultures are. And so these teachings are meeting our open temperament that really says we can love everyone. We're doing our best as imperfectly as we can to free ourselves from discrimination and love and give everyone an equal chance. And so that meeting, something new is happening, and it's appropriate that something new is happening right here. We're innovating and evolving something in, I think, a pretty beautiful way. Yeah.
My direct experience of it has been Zen having a very hard outer shell, but a warm liquid center. And I can't help also thinking of the evolution of dog training has really changed, and maybe Americans are just like golden retrievers.
Just like that.
You don't need to be harsh with them. You don't. It actually doesn't work. So it's not a perfect metaphor. All the blonde hair everywhere. Yeah.
The strictness of the past that we could interpret as lovelessness has given rise to many, many, many great teachers whose profound insight we are the beneficiary of. So it's so important not to be so careful to make a dividing line between what is love and what isn't love. We want to have a big mind about that.
Playing off that just a little bit, the news this last week was quite wonderful. Thousands of people came together in peace. Thousands of people really spoke their minds and their hearts with great equanimity. There were no volcanoes, there were no earthquakes, there were no hurricanes. Most people got fed. Most people were at peace. Most people in the world were quite at ease. There are little bits that were not so great, but if you look at the big picture of things, everything is okay. So I think that's part of what we're doing here, is looking at what's the big picture, what's the deep picture, you know? And the deep picture, the big picture is inclusive awareness, inclusive respect, inclusive appreciation. And if we look at the big picture of the world, that is the nature of the world. So when you hear, I gotta go see the news, don't worry about it. You know, there as usual, stuff happens. But by and large, everything is okay.
Over the week, it was really interesting to notice how I could almost weaponize metta as an antidote to any sort of negative or vexing thought that I had. Like, oh, I have this negative thing. Let me douse it with metta. And it was really nice to just feel into not weaponizing love. Like, oh, I have something negative, I have to fight it with love, and that is just violent in nature, and just allowing this space of metta to be like this field. It dissolves like the conflict, the problem-seeking mind, which is something I want to take away. It's so subtle. It's not something to it has no agenda in a way. Yeah, very gentle. So, yeah, it was really sweet to feel into that.
We had some hands over there.
During the sesshin, you had said that metta had a sort of, I guess, power where when even though we're doing metta sort of here, there might be a sense in which it actually could have an effect on sort of the things going on in the world. And so I was just wondering how you sort of came to that as a possibility.
Well, there isn't the world, there's your world. That's the only world you can ever experience, is your world. There isn't a world. If you continue this experiment, you will notice that it impacts your relationships. And sometimes it'll be very ordinary, like I'm less crabby, and sometimes it'll be like, that person reached out of nowhere. I thought they would never forgive me. So it's really an experiment to do, and look local. Look local.
During one of your talks, you said it's possible to go to Sesshin for 50 years and be dead to your practice. How does that work, and how do you stay engaged?
I'm going to scratch that one from the record. Scratch. Thank you for helping me scratch that from the record. Anybody else?
Once you've answered that, I'll give my statement.
Even if the Buddha herself walked in this room right now and sat in front of you, she could not reach inside your mind and tilt your heart in the direction you want it to go. And so protecting this flame of awakening, and keeping it lit is entirely up to each of us. And it's not easy to be honest about that. And it's so easy to become habituated, for this practice to become a ritual and not a living encounter where I take responsibility moment after moment, period after period, day after day. And so probably there's nobody I've ever met has sat dead for 50 years in Sesshin. But there are a whole lot of prolonged retirements going through the motions. And it doesn't have to be that way. So I probably should have said that instead.
Well, that's a perfect segue into my statement. I have been coming here for a while, and the thing I never understood the definition of the word metta, but I've come to see that it's joy in service. And you just see that over and over again, the joy that doesn't have to be thought about, or it's just a cultivation of joy in service.
You figured it out.
Well, I've observed it. Thank you.
We have these hands and we have these eyes, and that's what they're for.
Right. Thank you.